Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Catalin Dascalo, and today I've prepared a new video in which I'll show you how I root live cuttings. For comparison, I'm going to use different simple and effective methods without hormones or other rooting stimulants. These weak propagation methods are only useful if they are resistant to phylloxera. Varieties that are not resistant should be grafted onto resistant rootstocks or planted in sandy soil. Vine cuttings are very easy to root. In about 5 to 6 weeks under normal conditions they can root. In special conditions they can root even faster. The branches for this experiment are from some local hybrids that are resistant to this parasite. A neighbor gave them to me after pruning his live cuttings. They are 1-year-old branches, but more mature branches can also be used without any problems. After obtaining the cuttings, we make sure that they are alive. By cutting one end we can easily discover it. For those who don't know, this is what a live branch should look like. After cutting, it should look moist green or something similar. I don't know how to describe it better. I will cut all the cuttings on one side and then put them in water for about 2 or 3 days to hydrate them. Ideally, this should be done at the end of winter when the branches are still dormant. I took a while and did the experiment at the beginning of April. For rooting, I will use water, the bottle on the right side, sand and soil. I will also put some branches directly in the soil. Hydrating the branches and keeping them in a warm place activates the sap, and you can see how the buds have started to swell. To force rooting, I use branches with 3 or 4 nodes. The next step is to cut about ½ centimeter below the first node. I consider this cut useful only for rooting in water. I break off this node if all the buds are there. The roots should come out from here. I also leave about 5 centimeters above the last node, and then I put it in the sand, water or chosen substrate. In sand and other substrates, roots will also emerge above the node. Only in water. And if we keep the water level at about 2 centimeters, roots will only emerge from the bottom. But since I saw this operation in most of the materials I studied, I will cut them all the same. On the other hand, I leave 5 or 6 nodes for those that I am going to plant directly in the ground. I will make a separate video for this method. After about 5 weeks, the buds have sprouted, especially those that I have kept in water. The ones kept in water are much more developed. The first roots have also begun to appear. It is true that they are a little small, but in a few days they will be very developed. This is a 1-year-old branch. Here you can see very well how the first 2 roots have begun to emerge. This is a 2-year-old branch of the same variety. Here the roots are a little more developed. Here we have another variety. I have tried different varieties and they all took root. There are not many differences between them, only a few days. And here are the ones I put directly in the soil. The leaves do not necessarily indicate that they are rooted. In my opinion, this method should be done in the soil. This is how the roots look in the water after another week. The development is quite fast and the number of roots has increased considerably. This is a weapon of the 2-year-olds. Also, the development is very good. Long and many roots. It is the ideal time to plant in pots or directly in the soil. But now let's see the ones I put in sand and soil. Here, the roots of the ones I put in sand can be seen to be a little delayed compared to the ones in water. However, the ones I put in soil have not yet taken root. Only the vegetative part has developed. I only found one that has started to grow roots. In conclusion, this method is not very effective. Now I'm going to check a little bit the ones rooted in water or the ones rooted in sand. This one is rooted in sand. You can see that the roots have come out over a larger surface. Those rooted in water have roots only at the bottom, but they are highly developed. But I suppose if more water had been added, they would have roots like those planted in sand. Here you can clearly see how large the rooting surface is for those rooted in sand. The next step I'm going to do is plant them in containers for about another month. Then I will transplant them to their final location. To plant them, I used a plastic bottle with gravel at the bottom for drainage. Of course, you can use pots or any type of compatible container. Preferably, the taller the containers, the better. As a substrate, I used a mixture of black soil with sand. Ideally, for this stage, a mixture of coconut fiber and composted worm juice would have been better. I placed the cutting as shown in the images and then, being careful not to break the roots, I covered it with substrate. I placed the second cutting alone to monitor its development. Finally, I removed the shoots. On top, to maintain humidity for longer, I put a layer of sand and at the end I watered it well. Now I will put them in a draft-free but sunny spot. The plants will be seen after about a month. They had developed quite well, which is another 10 days away. Both the leaves and the roots are quite well developed. Now I will transplant them to their final location. Here we can compare the efficiency of forcing rooting in water or sand compared to planting directly in the fabric. I put the cuttings to root at the same time. Those placed directly in the fabric have very poor development. They also take root, but the process is much slower. Transplanting is the same as when planting any tree or shrub that comes in a pot. We make a hole about 40 by 40 centimeters and about 50 centimeters deep. Although I lived in it just before planting, I watered it well beforehand to create a water seal in the soil. Then I filled the egg halfway with the soil taken out in the reverse order. Now is also the time, if you have it, to add worm castings or some type of organic compost. I will make a more detailed video separately with this type of planting. I take the plant out of the bottle, being careful not to break the roots. Here you can see that the roots are very well developed. I put the plant in the hole and then fill it with the rest of the soil. Finally, I water it very well. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you liked it, subscribe, activate notifications, like, comment and share. See you later.